My wife looked me in the eye and said, "I cheated because you work too much. This is your fault." She didn't whisper it. She didn't soften it. She said it the way you tell a waiter the soup is cold, like the problem wasn't what she did, but that I hadn't warmed it for her. Lila had showered. Her hair was damp. She'd put on my gray sweatshirt, the one that used to mean she missed me. Tonight it meant she wanted the comfort without the owner. "I'm listening," I said, because my mouth didn't know what else to do. Her eyes had that bright, mean focus. I'd seen it when she fought with customer service reps. It was the look of a person who believed volume could rewrite math. "You're listening now," she said. "Funny." I leaned on the counter. My hands were still rough from the day. "Okay." She nodded like a judge. "I cheated. You drove me to it. You're never here. You're married to your work. I needed attention." A lot of husbands would start pleading right here. A lot of husbands would start yelling. I did neither. My brain clicked over into the part of me that can stay calm while an inspector points out a problem I didn't create but still have to solve. "Who?" I asked. "That's not the point," she snapped, and then she laughed, short and sharp. "See? That's you. Always trying to control the details. Like it's a project." "No," I said softly. "It's my life." She stepped closer and her voice got syrupy. "Then apologize." I blinked. "Apologize? For working so much," she said. "For abandoning me. For making me feel invisible. I want you to say it, out loud, right now." There it was. Not remorse, not regret. A demand. A trophy she could put on the shelf and dust whenever she needed to feel powerful. I felt something in my chest shift, not pain, not rage, something colder. A small internal door closing with a quiet click. "Lila," I said, "you cheated, and you caused it," she said, like she'd practiced. "So apologize." The Christmas lights in the living room blinked through the doorway. Red, green, red, green. Like a heart monitor for a marriage I suddenly realized had been flatlining for a while. I looked at her. I really looked. At the wet hair. The confident posture. The way she'd already decided I was guilty. My tongue touched my teeth. I tasted metal, like my body was bracing for impact. Then I smiled. "You're right," I said. "I'm sorry." Her shoulders relaxed so fast it was almost funny, like she'd been holding her breath until she got what she wanted. "Finally," she said, and she lifted her chin. "See? That wasn't so hard." She turned away, already moving on, already spending the victory in her head. And in that moment, watching her walk out of the room like she'd just won a negotiation, I understood something simple and brutal. When someone asks you to accept blame, they're admitting they don't understand the system. I stood there in the yellow light with my hands on the counter, smiling like a man who had just surrendered, and I started planning like a man who hadn't. The next morning I made coffee like nothing happened, not as a performance, not as some weak attempt at normal. I made coffee because my body had been waking up at 5:12 a.m. for years, and it didn't know any other life. The kitchen was quiet. The only sound was the drip into the pot and the faint hum of the refrigerator. Lila came in wearing silk pajamas I bought her last Christmas. They looked expensive. They also looked like armor. She didn't say good morning. She sat at the island, propped her phone against a mug, and scrolled, thumb, 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 like I was a piece of furniture. I poured her coffee anyway and slid it across the granite. She glanced at it, then at me. So, I echoed. "Are you still sorry?" she asked. I met her eyes. "Yes." She waited, like she expected a speech. I gave her one because I'm good at speeches when I have to be. Years of talking subcontractors off ledges will do that to you. "I'm sorry I made you feel alone," I said. "I'm sorry I didn't notice what you needed. I'm sorry I thought providing was the same thing as being present." Her lips twitched, pleased. I could have stopped there, But I kept going, because sometimes you have to give an illusion enough oxygen to float. I'm going to do better, I said. I'm going to make time. I'm going to fix this. Fix this. The phrase landed in her like candy. Her shoulders softened again. She took a sip like a queen tasting wine. Good, she said, because I can't live like this anymore. I nodded. I kept my face neutral. Inside, something was taking notes. She stood and walked behind me, brushed her hand across my back like she owned me, and said, I'm going to yoga. Don't blow up my phone. I won't, I said. The door closed. The house went still. I rinsed my mug. I set it in the dishwasher. I stared at my reflection in the dark window above the sink. I wasn't heartbroken. Not yet. Heartbreak is for men who still believe the other person is on the same team. What I felt was clearer than heartbreak. It was a map. Lila thought our life was built on feelings. She thought control came from guilt. She thought an apology was a leash. She didn't know I'd spent years building the boring parts of our life, the contracts, the accounts, the insurance riders, the titles, the passwords, the infrastructure, the things you only notice when they stop. I dried my hands and walked to my office at the back of the house, the small room with the printer and the file cabinet and the framed photo of us on a beach 3 summers ago. In the photo, she's smiling into the sun. I'm squinting, one arm around her waist, the other holding the phone. It looked like a different couple. I opened the bottom drawer of the file cabinet. Inside was a folder I labeled in black marker 2 years ago. Home. People call it paranoia when a man keeps paperwork organized. They call it controlling. They call it trust issues. I call it adulthood. I took out the lease agreement for our townhouse. The tenant line had one name on it, mine. I remembered Lila's exact words when we moved in. Don't make me sign anything. Paperwork is a vibe brutaler. I also pulled the vehicle lease, our SUV, shiny and black, the one she posted in photos like it was a personality trait. The lessee line didn't say Ethan Hale. It said Hale Site Services LLC. She didn't just cheat. She did it while living inside a life I built on paper. My phone buzzed. A text from Lila. Going out tonight. Girls, don't wait up. No question mark. No courtesy. Just instruction. I stared at the screen. Then I opened my calendar and set a 3-day countdown. Not because I was in a hurry. Because she was. On job sites, people think work is sweat. They see hard hats, steel-toe boots, crews dragging conduit through ceilings like they're wrestling snakes. They think that's the whole thing. The truth is, the sweat is the easy part. Sweat is honest. It tells you did something. The hard part is the invisible stuff. Risk, liability, paper trails, decisions you can't unmake. At 8:30 a.m., I was in my truck outside a bank, the kind with glass walls and polite plants. The city was gray and damp, the sky low like it was pressing down on the buildings. Inside, I sat across from a woman in a navy blazer with a name tag that read, Priya Patel. She wasn't my friend. She wasn't my therapist. She was the person who knew how my money moved. Priya flipped open her tablet and smiled the smile people wear when they've already read the whole story. Mr. Hale, she said, how can I help you today? I need to tighten access, I said. She didn't blink. Personal accounts or business? Both. She tapped. Is there a concern about unauthorized transactions? I thought of Lila's mouth forming the word apologize like a command. Yes, I said, there's a concern. Priya nodded like this was Tuesday, because for her, it was. We can remove authorized users, adjust limits, and flag unusual activity. I'll need verification. I slid my ID across the desk. My hands were steady. While she worked, my phone buzzed again. Lila, a selfie. Her and 2 women I barely knew, cheeks pressed together, lipstick bright, a bar neon sign glowing behind them. She captioned it, Freedom. I stared at the photo, then tucked the phone face down. In the reflection of the screen, I saw my own face, calm, blank, dangerous in a quiet way. Priya finished and pushed a printout toward me. This confirms the changes. Also, your personal checking is joint. You understand that freezing a joint account isn't straightforward, but we can separate your business funds and you can open a new personal account today. I already have one, I said. That made her eyes lift. Just slightly. Respect, maybe. Or suspicion. Then you're ahead, she said. I left the bank and drove to my attorney's office, not a divorce shark, not a billboard guy, a small firm above a dentist, the kind of place that smells like coffee and toner and old carpet. The attorney, Sandra Lyons, had helped me form my LLC and renegotiate vendor contracts when I expanded. She knew my work wasn't a hobby. She shook my hand in her office, sat down, and said, "What happened?" I told her. I kept it clean. No melodrama, just facts. Lila cheated. Lila blamed me. Lila demanded an apology. I gave it. Sandra listened without interrupting, which is rare. When I finished, she folded her hands. "You want a divorce?" she said. "I want control of my own life," I answered. "Same thing," she said gently. We talked about the house first. "It's a lease," I said. "Only in my name." "That's good," Sandra said. "Legally, she isn't a tenant if she's not on the lease, but she's your spouse and she lives there. That adds complication. You can't just lock her out if she hasn't left." "I'm not trying to do anything illegal," I said. "Then we do it clean," she said. "If she leaves voluntarily, you can terminate the lease and remove her access with the landlord. If she doesn't, you give notice. You file proper paperwork. No games." I nodded. Clean. That was fine. We talked about the car. "It's in the company," I said. Sandra smiled without humor. People don't realize how often they're riding around in someone else's ownership. "She thinks it's hers," I said. "She's wrong," Sandra said. "If you want, you can take possession." Again, clean. You don't accuse. You don't threaten. You just reclaim. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. A man's voice said, "Ethan?" I recognized it from one time at a company party Lila dragged me to. He'd had a grin too wide and a handshake too soft. "Yeah," I said. "This is Grant," he said. "Lila's friend." Lila had never mentioned him as a friend, not once. He laughed like we were buddies. "Listen, man, I heard you and Lila are going through it. I just wanted to say, don't be so uptight. She's a great woman. She deserves to have fun." I felt my mouth curve. Not a smile, more like a crack. "Does she?" I said. Grant kept talking, oblivious. "If you keep working all the time, she's gonna find attention somewhere else, you know? That's just human." I pictured his grin. I pictured his soft hand on mine at that party. I pictured him in Lila's photos, always just off to the side. "You should probably worry about your own attention," I said. There was a pause. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," I said, "you called the wrong number." I hung up. Sandra watched me. "Lover?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. She leaned back. "Okay, then your timeline is going to compress. People like that don't handle pressure well." I thought of Lila's text. "Going out tonight. Girls." I looked at Sandra. 3 days, I said. She raised an eyebrow. "That's fast." "Not for paperwork," I said. "Just for the truth to arrive." When I left her office, the sky had turned darker. Rain threatened. The city looked like it was holding its breath. And somewhere in that city, Lila was spending money she didn't understand. Grant worked in a downtown office tower. I knew because Lila had mentioned her friend Grant once in passing, the way you mention a neighbor's dog. She didn't think I stored details. She didn't realize I lived in details. That afternoon, I parked across the street from his building and watched the entrance from my truck. I didn't bring a weapon. I didn't bring a plan to hurt anyone. I brought patience, which is worse. At 5:47 p.m., Grant came out. He wasn't wearing a suit. He wore a fitted jacket and sneakers that screamed, "I have opinions about coffee." He walked with the confidence of a man who thinks consequences are for other people. He headed toward the parking garage on the corner. I followed, not fast, not sneaky, just steady. Inside the garage, the air smelled like exhaust and cold concrete. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a sickly, pale glow. Footsteps echoed like the building was emptying its pockets. Grant turned a corner and slowed, looking at his phone. I closed the distance. "Grant," I called. He looked up and smiled, that same too-wide grin. "Ethan, hey man, what's up?" "Talk," I said. He chuckled. "Now? I've got places to be." "So do I," I said. "And you're on my route." His smile tightened. He glanced around like he expected a security guard to pop out and save him. He tried to walk past me. I stepped into his path. I didn't touch him. I just stood there, 6'2", shoulders thick from years of hauling materials and carrying stress. Grant's eyes flicked to my hands. "You can't intimidate me," he said, voice louder than necessary. "I'm not," I said. "I'm asking a question." "What question?" he snapped. "How long?" I asked. He frowned. "How long what?" "You and my wife," I said. His face flashed, something between surprise and delight, like a kid caught stealing candy who also thinks stealing candy makes him cool. He shrugged. "Does it matter?" "It matters to me," I said. Grant laughed. "You're acting like you own her." I felt the cold door in my chest shut even tighter. "I don't own her," I said. "I own my decisions." He leaned closer, cocky. "Maybe if you'd been home more, she wouldn't have needed me." There it was, the same line Lila used, just wearing a different mouth. I stepped back, slow. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I tapped twice and held it up. On the screen was a photo of the SUV, the license plate visible. Under it was a document titled, "Vehicle Lease, Hale Site Services, LLC." Grant squinted. "What is that?" "That," I said, "is the car she drives." His eyes narrowed. "Okay." "And that," I said, "is the name on the lease." He stared. He didn't understand at first. Then the realization slid in, greasy and unwelcome. "You're... what?" he said. "You're going to take her car?" "I'm going to take my car," I corrected. Grant's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "That's petty," he said. "It's precise," I said. He shifted his weight, and I saw the first crack in his confidence. She'll just get another one." "With what?" I asked calmly. Grant's eyes flashed. "She has money." I laughed quietly. "No, she has access." His jaw worked like he was chewing on something he couldn't swallow. He tried to step around me again. I moved with him, mirroring. Not blocking with aggression, just matching. Like I'd done with men in hard hats who thought they could bully their way through a schedule change. Grant's voice went low. "Listen, I'm not trying to fight you." "Good," I said, "because I'm not here to fight." "Then what are you here for?" I leaned in just enough for him to smell the cold air on my clothes. "I'm here to tell you this," I said. "You didn't steal her. You inherited debt." He scoffed, but it sounded thin. I stepped past him, toward the row of cars. He followed, confused, like a dog that thinks it's still in control of the leash. I stopped at his sedan. I crouched. I took out a small tool from my pocket, a valve stem remover I use on job sites for equipment tires. I didn't slash, I didn't break, I just loosened the valve. Air hissed out, soft at first, then steady. Grant's eyes widened. "What the hell are you doing?" "Making your night longer," I said. He lunged forward, panicked, and grabbed my wrist. That was the first time he touched me. I stood up fast. My free hand came up, and I slapped him once across the face, not with rage, with instruction. The sound cracked in the garage like a starter pistol. Grant stumbled back, eyes watering, hand to his cheek. I held his gaze. Don't touch me again, I said. And don't call me again. His voice shook. You hit me. You grabbed me, I said. We can compare stories with a cop if you want, or you can walk away. His eyes darted around again, searching for witnesses. There were none, just the buzzing lights and the smell of exhaust, and the hiss of air leaving his tire. He swallowed. She'll hate you, he said, desperate. She already does, I said. That's why you exist. Grant's phone buzzed. He looked down. Lila's name lit up his screen. He answered with shaking fingers. Hey, babe, he said, voice trying to sound normal. I watched his face as he listened. Watched it tighten, then blanch. He looked at me like I was a ghost. I didn't have to hear Lila's words to know they were the start of panic. I turned and walked away, leaving him with a flat tire, a burning cheek, and a truth he couldn't laugh off. Behind me, I heard him say, No, I don't know what he's doing. I swear. Lila, calm down. I smiled to myself. Day 1 was about to begin. Lila came home after midnight. I was sitting in the living room with the TV off, not brooding, waiting. The room was lit only by the soft glow from the hallway nightlight, the one she insisted on because she didn't like darkness. It made the corners of the room look like they were hiding things. She opened the door too hard, like she wanted the house to flinch. Why is Grant freaking out? She snapped, tossing her purse onto the couch. I didn't move. Good evening, I said. She froze. Don't do that calm thing, it's creepy. I'm tired, I said. Work. She rolled her eyes. Work, always work. She kicked off her heels and marched toward me. He said you came up to him, in a garage, like some psycho. I let silence stretch. It makes people fill it with their own fears. You hit him, she said, eyes narrowing. Did you hit him? He grabbed me, I said. I told him not to touch me. Her mouth twisted. So you assaulted him. I defended myself, I said. She pointed at me like I was the child. You're embarrassing me. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I said, he called me today, gave me advice. Her face flickered. He was just checking on you. He's a friend. A friend, I repeated. She crossed her arms. Don't start. I'm not starting, I said. I'm ending. That landed. She blinked like she didn't understand the language. What is that supposed to mean? She demanded. It means, I said, I'm not doing the apology thing again. Her eyes widened, offended. You already apologized. Yes, I said, and now I'm done. She stared at me like I'd slapped her, even though I hadn't touched her. You don't get to be done, she said. You caused this. You don't get to act like the victim. I stood up slowly. Lila, I said, I came home every night and built a life around you. You cheated. You blamed me. And now you're ordering me to feel guilty so you can feel clean. Her face flushed. You don't know what it's like to be alone. I looked at her, really looked, and I said, You've never been alone. You've been bored. Her eyes went sharp as knives. Screw you. She stormed toward the bedroom. Halfway down the hall, she turned back and hissed, You better not do anything stupid. If you try to control me, I'm not controlling you, I said. I'm controlling me. She slammed the bedroom door. I didn't follow. I walked into my office and opened my laptop. I logged into the property management portal for our townhouse complex. The login was mine. The email address was mine. The password was mine, because I'd set it, because I'd always handled boring things. There was a button labeled, Terminate Lease Early. It listed the penalty. It was painful. But pain is relative. I'd paid more than that to fix a crane error once, because fixing it was cheaper than watching the whole job collapse. I clicked. I chose a move-out date 3 days away, Friday. I paid. Then I opened the auto insurance account and removed Lila as a driver, effective immediately. Not because I wanted to punish her, because I wasn't going to be liable for someone who treated my life like a toy. I opened our phone plan. I removed her line from the family plan. The system offered to send her a text about the change. I selected no. I wasn't trying to humiliate her. I was trying to end the illusion. At 2:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. A notification. Lease termination confirmed. I stared at it, then at the dark window. The reflection showed a man with tired eyes and a calm mouth. Lila slept down the hall, probably dreaming about being right. In 3 days, she would wake up in a world built on different rules, and she still thought her apology trophy was keeping me in a cage. The next morning, Lila left early. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't kiss me. She brushed past me in the hallway like I was a stranger who happened to pay the bills. I watched her pick up the SUV keys from the bowl by the door. Her nails were manicured, glossy. She wore a blazer like she was important. At the door, she turned and said, "Don't do anything while I'm gone." "Okay," I said. She frowned. "That's it? You're not going to argue?" "No," I said. "I'm busy." She scoffed and left, the door shutting behind her with that final, heavy sound that used to scare me because it meant we were fighting. Now it was just a sound. I drove to work. I actually did work. I met with a crew. I walked a site. I signed a delivery ticket. I answered a client's call about a change order. Life didn't pause just because my marriage was rotting. Around noon, my phone buzzed. Lila's name. I answered. "Yeah." Her voice came in hot. My card got declined. I leaned against a concrete wall and watched a forklift carry pallets across a lot. "Which card?" "My card," she snapped. "The one I always use. It's saying, 'Not authorized. Fix it.'" I kept my voice calm. "It's not authorized anymore." Silence. Then sharper. "What do you mean, not authorized?" "It means exactly what it says," I replied. "You can't do that," she hissed. "That's our money." "No," I said. "That was access. There's a difference." Her breathing turned jagged. "Are you punishing me?" "I'm protecting myself," I said. She made a sound, half laugh, half growl. "You're pathetic." I stared at the forklift. The driver waved at me. I nodded back, because the world still existed. "Lila," I said, "you wanted me to apologize." "I did." "You wanted me to take blame." "I did." "What you never did was ask me if I was done." Her voice dropped. "This is because of Grant." "It's because of you," I said. She swallowed, and I could hear it, a tiny sound like a crack forming in glass. "What else did you do?" she asked. "Nothing illegal," I said. "Nothing dramatic. Just paperwork." "Paperwork," she repeated, suddenly uncertain. "Yes," I said. "The boring stuff." She hung up. 2 hours later, she called again. "This is insane," she said. "I'm at the dealership. The guy says the car is under your business. He says I'm not listed on the insurance anymore." I closed my eyes, not out of sadness, out of relief. The truth was finally touching her. "He's correct," I said. "You're taking my car?" she screamed. "It was never your car," I said. She started crying then, the kind of cry that tries to manipulate. The kind that turns into anger the second it doesn't work. "You can't leave me with nothing," she said through tears. "What am I supposed to do?" "You're supposed to live with the choices you made," I said. There was a pause. Then her voice turned vicious. "I'll tell everyone what you're doing. I'll tell my parents. I'll tell your clients. I'll ruin you." I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. "Go ahead," I said. "Tell them you cheated because I worked too much, and then demanded I apologize." Silence. Because she didn't have a story that made her look good without making her look guilty. After that call, I stayed on site, but my mind kept replaying her tone. The anger wasn't the scary part. The scary part was how quick she went from certainty to confusion. People like Lila can survive almost anything except being wrong. At 3:17 p.m., she called a third time. I let it ring twice before answering. Okay, she said, too controlled. I talked to the bank. They said you removed me as an authorized user. Why would you do that? So I can sleep, I said. What does that mean? It means I'm done funding a life that's pointed away from me, I replied. She inhaled sharply, like she was about to launch another speech, then stopped. In the background, I heard the hollow echo of a store, maybe a boutique, maybe a salon, somewhere she expected to pay with a smile and a swipe. You're acting like I'm some stranger, she said. You made yourself one, I said. Her voice cracked. Ethan, I can't even get into the gym. My membership app says my payment failed. People are staring at me. I pictured her at the front desk, chin lifted, insisting the machine was wrong. Machines don't care about pride. I didn't cancel your gym, I said. You tied it to my card. Silence again, then small and mean. So what? You're going to make me beg? No, I said. I'm going to make you notice. She went quiet for so long I thought the call dropped. Then she whispered, You're not the man I married. I stared out at the steel beams above the site, at the way they held weight without asking permission. Neither are you, I said. For a second my hands shook. Not from fear of her, but from the simple fact that I'd never used my power this way. On job sites, control keeps people safe. At home, control had turned into something else, something quiet and permanent. I kept breathing until the shaking stopped. That evening, she didn't come home. Not right away. At 10:06 p.m., my phone buzzed again. A text from her. I'm staying with a friend. Don't do anything. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I replied, Okay. And I forwarded the text to Sandra Lyons, because if she left voluntarily, cleanly, the system could move. And once the system moves, you don't stop it by crying. Friday morning arrived like a judge. Gray sky, cold wind, the kind of air that makes every sound sharper. At 7 a.m., a moving truck pulled up to the townhouse. 2 guys got out, both wearing knit caps and work gloves, both looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. I met them at the curb with coffee and a clipboard. Morning, one of them said. Morning, I replied. Just my stuff. Bedroom, office, and the garage boxes with red tape. They nodded and went to work. Inside, the house looked the same as always. The couch Lila picked because it was Instagram neutral. The candles she never lit. The throw pillows that had never been thrown. I walked through room by room, taking only what was mine, which was most of it in a legal sense, but not in a moral sense. I left her personal things untouched. Clothes, makeup, hair tools, a jewelry box. I wasn't trying to erase her. I was trying to remove myself. At 9:14 a.m., the property manager, a man named Carl with kind eyes and a tired mouth, met me at the leasing office. Mr. Hale, he said, I got your termination request. Yes, I said. He hesitated. Is everything okay at home? I thought about how to answer without turning my marriage into entertainment. It's changing, I said. Carl nodded like he understood more than I'd said. Your wife. She's not on the lease. No, I said. And she's staying elsewhere. Carl exhaled. Then we can deactivate her fob access. Today. I'll need the keys back at noon for final inspection. I handed him the spare fob Lila used. He looked at it like it was heavier than plastic. You sure? I nodded. I'm sure. At 11:30 a.m., I drove to the bank again and signed paperwork for my new personal account transfer. Priya Patel greeted me with the same calm smile. Everything okay? She asked, polite. I signed my name. Everything is being clarified, I said. She didn't ask more. Good bankers know when a person is in the middle of a private disaster. At 1:05 p.m., Lila called. Her voice was raw. "Where are you?" "I'm at work," I said. "You're lying," she snapped. "The leasing office says my fob doesn't work. I'm outside. My key isn't working. I can't get in." I pictured her on the front walkway, hair perfect, face furious, banging a useless key fob against a locked gate like reality would change out of embarrassment. "I terminated the lease," I said. There was a long silence, then barely a whisper. You can't." "I did," I said. "You can't leave me homeless," she said, voice rising. "I'm not leaving you homeless," I replied. "You're with a friend. You chose to leave." She started breathing hard, like she was running even though she was standing still. "This is insane," she said. "This is abuse." "No," I said. "This is accountability." She screamed then, full throat, ugly. "You're doing this because you're jealous, because you're weak, because you can't stand that someone else wanted me." I waited until her screaming ran out of gas. Then I said, "Lila, you didn't cheat because I worked too much. You cheated because you thought my work was an unlimited resource you could spend while you tried on other lives." She made a choking sound. "What do you want?" she asked, smaller now. "I want you out of mine," I said. Another silence. Then she said, "I'm coming to your office." "No," I said. "Don't." She laughed, sharp again. "What are you going to do? Hit me too?" "I'm going to have security escort you out," I said, "and then I'm going to file for divorce." "File!" she spat. "You think papers scare me?" "They should," I said softly. "They're the only things that ever did." She hung up. Before I left the townhouse for the last time, I wrote one note on plain paper and set it on the bare kitchen counter where she couldn't miss it. "Lila, your things are boxed in the hall closet and labeled. The storage unit is paid through next month. The complex will not reissue you a fob. If you need to retrieve anything else, contact my attorney. Do not come to my job site. Do not come to my new address." I stared at the note for a moment, expecting to feel triumph. I felt nothing. That was when I knew it was over for real. At 2:30 p.m., Sandra Lyons called me. "She wants to contest everything," Sandra said. "Of course," I said. "She's claiming you're retaliating financially." "I'm terminating my obligations," I said. Sandra sighed. "We'll keep it clean. I'm filing today. I also want you to document her confession, how she blamed you and demanded an apology." I swallowed. "I have it," I said. Sandra paused. "You have it recorded?" "I have it written," I said, "and I have the text messages." Not a hidden mic, not a spy camera, just the kind of proof people hand themselves when they're too arrogant to realize they're building a case against their own narrative. Sandra exhaled, approving. "Good, stay calm. Let her spiral." I looked at the moving truck, now parked at my new apartment complex downtown. A small place, clean, mine. The driver handed me the last box. "You all set?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah," I said, because I was. And somewhere across town, Lila was learning that apology trophies don't pay for shelter. By Friday night, the city felt different. Not because the streets changed, because I did. I wasn't floating through my life anymore. I was walking in it with my eyes open, and that makes everything sharper. I parked near the bar where Lila and her friends like to go, the one with the expensive cocktails and the dim lighting that makes people feel mysterious, even when they're just drunk. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. I waited across the street in my truck and watched the entrance through rain-speckled glass. At 9:22 p.m., Grant came out. He was alone. He walked fast, head down, shoulders hunched, like the night air itself was accusing him. He spotted my truck and froze. I got out. I didn't rush him. I didn't have to. Grant's voice was shaky. "You're stalking me now?" "No," I said. "You're just predictable." He swallowed. His cheek still had a faint shadow where my hand had landed 2 days ago. "What do you want?" he asked. "I want you to understand something," I said. He laughed nervously. "Man, I don't owe you anything. She's not your property." I already told you I don't own her, I said, but I do own the consequences. Grant's eyes flicked around the empty sidewalk, the closed shops, the puddles reflecting streetlights. You're scaring me, he said, trying to sound tough. I'm not here to scare you, I said. I'm here to be clear. He shook his head. Lila said you're controlling, that you're trying to ruin her. I shrugged. Lila says a lot of things when she's cornered. Grant's jaw tightened. She's staying with me right now. That was the first real information he'd given me. I nodded. How's that going? He hesitated. His eyes betrayed him. Fine, he lied. I took a step closer. You're a grown man, I said. You knew she was married. She said you didn't care, he snapped. She said you were basically roommates. She said you worked all the time and ignored her. I smiled. And you believed her because it made you feel important. His face flushed. Screw you. I leaned in, voice low. She's a person who needed someone to blame, I said. First it was me. Then it'll be you. You think you're the hero. You're just the next excuse. Grant's mouth opened to argue, then closed, because somewhere deep down, he already knew it. His phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and flinched. Is that her? I asked. He didn't answer. I watched him. His hands trembled. A man who thought he was stealing something shiny had realized he'd grabbed a live wire. Tell her this, I said. Grant swallowed. Tell her what? Tell her she can't call it love when it's just blame-wearing perfume. He stared at me like he hated me for sounding calm. I'm not your messenger, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. I stepped back. You already are, I said. That's why she picked you. He clenched his jaw. You think you're some kind of mastermind. No, I said. I'm just the person who pays attention. Grant's eyes narrowed. She says she's going to take you for everything. I laughed, a short sound. What everything? The lease she never signed, the car she never owned, the accounts she never understood? His face fell. He was seeing it now, the way the floor had dropped out from under her, and by extension, under him. He lowered his voice. She's freaking out, he admitted. She keeps calling her dad. She keeps saying you can't do this. I nodded. And what do you say? Grant's eyes darted away. I tell her to calm down. Does she? I asked. He didn't answer. I took a breath of cold air. Here's the thing, Grant, I said. You wanted the benefits. Now you have the responsibility. She's in your apartment. She's in your life. She's your problem. He looked at me, panicked. No, she's not. I tilted my head. Then tell her to leave. He swallowed again. His throat bobbed. That's when I saw it. The exact moment he realized he didn't have the courage to hold what he'd taken. He'd been brave enough to sneak around, brave enough to smirk, brave enough to call me and lecture me about human nature. But brave enough to own the fallout? No. Grant's phone buzzed again. This time he answered, voice tight. Lila, stop calling. Her voice came through the speaker, loud enough that I heard the edge of hysteria. Grant winced. No, I can't fix it. What do you want me to do? He glanced at me like I'd put a gun to his head, even though my hands were empty. I watched him listen, watched his shoulders sag. Then he said, Lila, you can't stay here if you're going to scream at me like this. His eyes widened at his own words, like he couldn't believe he'd said them. The line went quiet for a second. Then Lila's voice exploded, and I didn't catch the words, just the tone, a person realizing her new shelter had walls too. Grant's face turned gray. He pulled the phone away and hung up. He stared at me, hollow. What did you do? He whispered. I shrugged. Nothing, I said. I stopped doing things for her. He looked like he might cry. I turned to leave. Behind me, Grant said, Ethan, she's going to come after you. I stopped and looked back once. She already did, I said. She just didn't know she was standing on my work. And I walked away, leaving him on the sidewalk with rain dripping off his hair like sweat, finally learning the difference between attention and commitment. Saturday morning, Lila showed up at my new apartment. I knew she would. People like her don't accept that a door can close. They keep knocking until their knuckles bleed, convinced the pain will earn them entry. The building had a lobby with a security desk, clean, quiet, expensive enough to feel like a statement, but not so expensive that it looked like I was trying to hurt her with money. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I was trying to detach. I was coming back from the gym when I saw her. She stood in the lobby in a long coat, hair done, makeup perfect. Her eyes were red anyway. Rage can leak through mascara like water through cheap paint. The security guard, a broad man named Rico, looked at me with that question in his eyes. Do you know her? I nodded once. Lila saw me and marched forward like she was walking into a courtroom. So this is where you've been hiding, she hissed. I set my gym bag down. I'm not hiding, I said. I moved. You can't just move, she snapped. You're my husband. I looked at her. You forgot that title when you climbed into someone else's bed. Her face contorted. Don't you dare say it like that. Like what? I asked. Like it happened? Rico shifted behind the desk, watching. He didn't intervene, but his presence changed the air. It made Lila careful. She lowered her voice. I made a mistake. That's not what you called it, I said. She blinked. What? You called it my fault, I said. You called it human. You called it something I should apologize for. Her jaw tightened. You pushed me. I laughed quietly. There it is again. Her hands clenched at her sides. You're trying to ruin me. I'm trying to remove you, I corrected. She stepped closer, eyes shining. Where am I supposed to go? Grant kicked me out. He's a coward. I raised an eyebrow. Shocking. She flinched, as if the sarcasm was a slap. I went to my parents, she said. My dad said I should come talk to you. He said you're being extreme. I'm being clean, I said. She shook her head. Extreme is throwing me out of my home. It wasn't your home, I said. It was our home, she insisted, voice cracking. I leaned in slightly, not threatening, just making sure she heard every word. It was my lease, I said. My credit. My liability. You lived there because you were with me. Then you decided you weren't. Her eyes flicked, the first real uncertainty. She swallowed. So what now? She asked, trying to sound in control. You think you can just keep everything? I'm not keeping anything, I said. I'm keeping what was always mine. And I'm not giving you what you think you're entitled to. She stared at me, breathing hard. Then she said, I'll destroy your reputation. I nodded slowly. You can try. She narrowed her eyes. Don't act like you're not scared. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small envelope. Not dramatic, just paper. I handed it to her. What is this? She asked. Read it, I said. She tore it open like she wanted to rip my throat. She unfolded the first page. Her eyes moved across the text. Her face changed. What is this? She whispered again, but this time it wasn't anger. It was fear. It's the divorce filing, I said, and attached is a sworn statement of financial separation, effective the day you left the townhouse. She looked up, panicked. You can't do that without me. I can file without you, I said, and I can separate my business accounts without your permission. Her fingers trembled on the paper. There's also a notice, I added. From the company. The car has been returned. Any attempt to take it again will be treated as unauthorized use. She stared at me, stunned. You're threatening me with cops? She hissed, voice rising. I'm warning you about boundaries, I said. A threat is something you use to control. This is something I use to protect. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked around the lobby like she might faint, like the polished floors and quiet air were too stable for the chaos inside her. Rico cleared his throat softly behind the desk. Not a command, just a reminder that this wasn't her stage. Lila swallowed again. She looked at the papers like they were radioactive. "You're doing this because you're hurt," she said, trying to soften it. I shook my head. "No," I said. "I'm doing this because I'm awake." Her eyes flashed. "I loved you." "You loved the life," I said. "You loved the access. You loved having someone else hold the weight so your hands stayed clean." Tears finally spilled, real this time, not theatrical. They ran down her cheeks and ruined her makeup. "I can change," she whispered. I watched her. For a second, a memory flickered. Lila laughing at a cheap diner, Lila asleep on my shoulder in a movie theater, Lila saying my name like it mattered. Then I remembered her voice in the kitchen. "Apologize." The cold door stayed closed. "You already did change," I said. "You changed into someone I don't recognize." She shook her head, desperate. "Ethan, please." I took one step back, creating space. "There's one more thing," I said. Her eyes lifted, hopeful, terrified. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small black key fob, the townhouse fob she'd used for months. I tossed it into the trash can beside the security desk. It landed with a dull plastic thud. Lila stared at it like I'd thrown away a piece of her body. "That's the last key you had," I said, "to anything I built." Her breath hitched. "You're evil," she whispered. I met her eyes. "No," I said. "I'm finished." Rico stepped out from behind the desk then, polite but firm. "Ma'am," he said, "he's asked you to leave." Lila looked at Rico, then at me, then back at the trash can. She seemed to shrink in real time, her confidence folding in on itself like wet paper. She backed away slowly. At the door she turned and said, voice hoarse, "You think you won." I held her gaze. "This isn't a game," I said. "It's a structure, and you walked off it." She stood there for a beat, frozen between rage and collapse. Then she pushed the door open and stepped into the cold daylight, alone. I didn't follow her outside. That's what she wanted. One last scene, one last attempt to drag me into her chaos and make me play a part she could control. I stayed inside, because staying inside was the point. I picked up my bag. I nodded at Rico. "Thanks," I said. He nodded back. "You okay?" he asked quietly. I thought about the word okay, how people use it like a bandage for anything. "I'm clear," I said. I rode the elevator up to my floor. The hallway smelled like someone's laundry detergent and fresh paint, clean, blank, a place without history. Inside my apartment, I set the papers Sandra had emailed me onto the counter and poured myself a glass of water. No whiskey, no celebration, just water. My phone buzzed, 99 missed calls, all from Lila. I didn't answer. I watched the screen light up again, another call, then go dark. Again. The number wasn't what mattered. It was the sudden panic behind it. 3 days ago, she'd demanded an apology like I was a child. Now she was dialing like the world was ending. I sat down at the small kitchen table and let the phone ring out. Then a text came through. A different number. Unknown. It read, "This is Lila's father. Call me." I stared at it for a long moment, then deleted it. You don't negotiate with people who still think blame is currency. At 6:18 p.m., another text came in from Lila. "Please. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I was angry. I'll do anything. Just tell me where to go." I read it twice. Then I typed, "Talk to my attorney." I didn't add anything else. No insults, no victory lap, no explanation. Because explanations are for people who still believe the other side is listening. At 6:23 p.m., her response arrived, fast and vicious. "You're going to gone alone." I smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was predictable. I set the phone down and walked to the window. From my 10th floor view, I could see the city spread out under the gray sky. Buildings, streets, a river cutting through like a scar, cars moving in steady streams through a body that didn't care about my personal tragedy. Down on the sidewalk, I saw her. Lila stood across the street, coat wrapped around her, hair blowing in the wind. She looked up at the building, searching for my window like she could will me into appearing. She was small from this height. A figure, not a force. She pulled out her phone and called again. I watched her. I didn't answer. After a minute, she lowered the phone and screamed at the sky. I couldn't hear the words through the glass, but I didn't need to. I knew the language. It was the same language she'd used in the kitchen, just louder. Blame, blame, blame. Then something happened that made my stomach go still. A tow truck rolled up behind her, lights flashing. It stopped at the curb. The driver got out and walked to the SUV parked along the street, my company SUV. The one Lila had driven to the building, because even now she still thought access meant ownership. He leaned down, checked the plate, then attached the hook. Lila turned, confused at first, then furious. She rushed forward, waving her arms, arguing. The driver handed her a paper. He pointed at the truck. He pointed at the SUV. He pointed at the paper again. Lila's shoulders sagged. From 10 floors up, I watched her read it. I watched her eyes widen. I watched her mouth open. Even without hearing, I knew what it said. Repossession wasn't the right word. It wasn't drama. It wasn't revenge in the movie sense. It was simply retrieval. Company property returned to the company. Clean, legal, boring, devastating. Lila threw the paper at the driver. He didn't flinch. He picked it up and tucked it into his pocket like he'd seen worse. The winch whined. The SUV started to rise. Lila stood there, hands shaking, looking around like someone might save her. No one did. People walked past. A couple glanced, then kept going. A man with a dog paused for a second, then moved on. The city didn't care. The SUV lifted off the ground, tires dangling, helpless. Lila looked up at the building again. For a moment, her eyes found my window. Or maybe she just guessed. I didn't move. I stood perfectly still behind the glass, a shadow in a clean apartment. The tow truck pulled away, dragging the SUV like it was a gone thing. Lila's mouth formed something I couldn't hear. Then she collapsed onto the curb, coat pooling around her like a dark spill. I watched her sit there, shaking, alone, finally understanding what my work actually paid for. Not just a house, not just a car, a life with exits. I turned away from the window, picked up my glass, and took a sip of water. In the kitchen 3 days ago, she'd ordered me to apologize. I had, and while she was celebrating that apology, I'd been doing my real work. I set the glass down and looked at the closed door of my apartment. The world outside could keep screaming. I was done answering. I didn't feel revenge. I felt alignment. Cold, exact, final, today.